At this point, I'm convinced that I'm just the luckiest man alive. Not even with like the whole chosen of Arceus lore stuff either. Just like straight up the fucking luckiest man alive. Hopefully that luck will follow us through into Pokemon Emerald along with our Swinub and our Mareep.
It's time to get f***ing serious. I realized something today while I was at work. The reason that we are on run number 6, I figured it out. You see, it's because I'm a dumbass. And we lost King Mankey, and I checked. And we cannot get him again. He doesn't appear in this game. In Generation 4 and Platinum, he's only post-game. And you can't get him in Black or White. We're gone. We no longer have the king. We no longer have the protection of Arceus. So from here on out, baby, it's all me. There's no more luck involved. We gotta f***ing focus up. Anyway, that's what I'm saying for the lore. Really, I'm just bad at this game. We are officially on our own. No more King Mankey, no more Arceus, just us and whatever skills we can muster. For the 6th time, we pick Zetso the Torchic as our starter, with the hopes of bringing an extra fire type into Sinnoh, since they're so incredibly rare there. From there, we blitz through the early game. We pick up Pharonic the Poochyena, Slamami the Wingull, and Kamas the Wurmple. All 3 of these Pokemon are fantastic. Mightyena is an all-around great Mon, and can hard counter Tate and Liza's Lunatone. Pelipper learns Protect through its learn set, and is crucial to dealing with Norman's slacking. And both Beautifly and Dustox can solo Brawly's entire gym by themselves. We have a fantastic start. We get to Petalburg, where we meet our dad and Wally. Our dad loans a Zigzagoon to Wally to help him catch his first Pokemon, and we're assigned to go help him. So we escort Wally and watch as he catches his Ralts. An interesting thing to note about this Ralt is that it's level 5. A level 5 Ralt only knows a single move, Growl. So after Wally catches the Ralt, it's assumed that he returns the Zigzagoon to Norman, meaning that all he has is a single Pokemon that can't attack, which means the only way he can level it up is by forcing the Ralts to struggle. This isn't relevant to the rest of the video at all, but I just thought it was funny that this poor kid is so excited to get a Pokemon, and it's actually incapable of fighting on its own at all. Anyways, before we know it, we're at Roxanne, and I instantly blunder going into the fight. This should hope. I didn't level up to level cap.
We're under-leveled for the first gym fight of the game. Despite that, we easily take care of both Roxanne's Geodudes with Laney the Marill, but the real issue is Nosepass. This thing is so stupidly bulky, it has a Citrus Berry, and it can prevent swapping out with Block. In an ideal world, you would take this thing out with a Leech Seeding Shroomish, but we ended up getting Slackoth in Petalburg Woods, so we don't get to take the easy way out. On the first turn, it uses Block, locking us in. From here, the only real option we have is to spam Water Gun with Laney and pray it can take out the Nosepass. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen and we end up losing Laney, but not before bringing Nosepass down to Red Health, letting Slamami take it out on the next turn. We have our first badge and our first death. And it was an entirely avoidable death too. From here on out, I've really got to focus up. After leaving the gym, we see the Aqua Grunt run off with some Devon parts. So we go get those back and free Mr. Briny's Pico along the way. As thanks, Mr. Stone decides to give us a cell phone for some reason. He also makes us his errand boy and tells us to deliver a letter to Steven and to give the Devon parts to Captain Stern in Slateport City. So we head down to talk to Mr. Pico and take a ride to Dewford. Once there, we beeline straight to the gym to take on Brawly. We lead with our Dustox Kamas, who easily takes out his entire team one after the other, without even dropping into yellow hit points. With that finish, we rush the Granite Cave and deliver the letter to Steven. Then we head off to Slateport. When we go to find Captain Stern, we learn that Team Aqua has gone on a field trip to the local museum. They're also trying to mug the captain. So we put a stop to that with the help of Lari, our shiny Flaffy, and send Archie and his goons packing. Next up is the Watson fight. There's also a rival fight, but May is a pushover in this game, so we're ignoring her. Watson, though, is a pretty scary fight. It's the hardest one so far. Normally, I'd like to bring a Shedinja to this fight to deal with one of his Electrics and his Ace Manectric, as well as a Mach-punching Breloom to deal with his Magneton. Unfortunately, we have neither of those things, so we'll have to make do with what we have. We lead with Pharonic against his lead Voltorb to get an Intimidate attack drop on it. This is to try and minimize the damage it could do by self-destructing. After a bite brings it to half hit points, it goes kaboom, bringing Pharonic to half health. Next, he brings out his second Electrike, who is swiftly taken out by a critical bite from Faronic. However, Faronic can't touch his Steel-type Magneton, so we swap out to Zetso, who manages to OHKO it with a second critical hit. All he has left is his Ace Manectric. We unfortunately get paralyzed, letting the Manectric get off 2 howls, bringing its attack to +2. We swap into Faronic to lower it back down some with Intimidate, but we're instantly forced to swap out to Boris the Loudred, who we brought as a Sackmon. And Boris is quickly sacked off, but not before making Manectric use its Citrus Berry. With the free swap, we go into Onfunny, our pre-paralyzed, guts-boosted Swellow. We calculate that a Shockwave won't kill, so we go for a Quick Attack, planning to kill next turn. But our plan is interrupted when a critical Shockwave kills Onfunny. We decide to swap into our Vigoroth Keith, who is able to finish off the Manectric with Fury Swipes, ending the fight. We got our 3rd gym badge, but we lost Onfunny, which is really unfortunate. A Gut Swellow is a fantastic Pokemon, and it hurts not to have it for the rest of the run. With Watson defeated, we move on to Meteor Falls. Once we get there, we find some Team Magma grunts talking about some meteorite they had, and that they were going to use it at Mount Chimney. So I guess that's where we need to go next. We beat up a couple grunts and find Maxie trying to use some machine with the meteorite, which somehow makes the volcano hotter? Now, I'm not a volcanologist, but something about that math doesn't add up. Anyway, it's probably a bad idea to let him make the volcano worse, so we have to fight him and steal the meteorite. We lead with Keith the Vigoroth before swapping out into Finnerik and getting off our own Intimidate. Faronic manages to force Maxie to use his potion, but it's too weak to keep fighting afterwards. We swap back into Keith, who takes out the Mightyena and the Zubat that follows. All Maxie has left is his Ace Camerupt, which Keith takes out with 2 strengths, ending the fight still above half health. Next up, we head to Lava Ridge to face Flannery and get our 4th gym badge. Seeing how well Keith did against Maxie, we lead with him for this fight. Keith is able to swiftly deal with Flannery's lead Numel as well as her Slugma. When her Camerupt comes out, he gets a lucky critical hit, bringing it all the way down to red health. But red health means it can still attack, and attack it does. A single overheat takes Keith out. We swap into Mark, the female Gyarados, to finish off the Camerupt. All Flannery has left is her Ace Torkoal. Mark easily handles it thanks to Dragon Rage dealing a set 40 damage, letting us completely bypass Torkoal's high defense stat. With the 4th badge in hand, we head straight back to Petalburg to get the 5th gym badge from our dad Norman. Now, Norman is infamous for his Ace Slacking, who can pretty much OHKO any single Pokemon you can obtain up to this point. In every single run I've done up until now, I have never beaten Norman without losing at least 1 Pokemon, and I'm planning on losing at least 1 here. But if all goes well, we won't lose anyone else. We lead the fight with Bradley, our pre-poisoned Guts Machoke. Unfortunately, Bradley gets confused on turn 1 from Norman's lead Spinda, but we manage to get through the confusion and OHKO it with a Karate Chop. Same deal for the Vigoroth that follows. And when Norman sends out his Lanoon, Bradley, like an absolute champ, breaks out of the confusion and OHKOs it too. Now it's time for the monster. Unfortunately, it's also time for Bradley to say goodbye. He served us well, but we need the free swap to have a chance at beating the Slacking. We swap into Zetso, who takes advantage of Slacking's Truant turns and chips away at it with Dig. An unlucky counter from the Slacking brings Zetso down to half health, and we switch to plan B. We swap into Mark to get off an Intimidate, lowering Slacking's attack. We get a lucky Dragon Rage off, taking no damage thanks to the AI trying to use counter again. With our free Truant turn, we swap into Faronic, getting a second Intimidate drop. From here, we swap back and forth between Faronic and Mark, forcing the Slacking to -6 attack. At this point, the Slacking is basically useless. Its attack stat is so low that the AI is forced into using Feint Attack, the one special move Slacking has. And with Mark being so specially defensive, the rest of this fight is a cinch. Everything went exactly as planned. After his defeat, Norman expresses how bittersweet he feels about losing to his child, before we're whisked away by Wally's dad, who gives us Surf. With that, most of the region opens up to us, clearing the path to the 6th gym leader. But before we take on Winona, we get to take a short break from all the difficult fights as we head to the Weather Institute to stop Team Aqua from stealing the Castform that lives there. Just like with Team Magma, I'm not sure how that furthers their goal, but whatever. We beat up the Aqua admin and learn that Team Magma is doing some nefarious stuff at Mount Pyre. They make it seem like it was a super huge, really big deal that we should be really concerned about, but we have a fight with Winona coming up, and frankly, that's more important. The Winona fight is normally really scary thanks to her Ace Altaria having both Dragon Dance and Earthquake. But we have a secret weapon. We have Rut, the Piloswine we brought over from Generation 2 who knows Ice Beam. If we can arrange a situation in which Rut can hit Altaria with an Ice Beam, it'll OHKO the bird and we'll win the match. It's time to put our strategy into action. We lead the fight with our Magneton Obel, who is able to easily OHKO Winona's lead Swablu. Seeing how her first Pokemon was utterly obliterated, she instantly brings out the big guns. In response, we swap into Rut, who easily eats an Earthquake and a Dragon Breath before a single Ice Spring brings the Altaria down to red health. The issue is that we were expecting to get an OHKO. Luckily, Rut was holding an Oran Berry, which brought its health up high enough to eat a second Dragon Breath. Because of this, it's able to take down the Altaria with another Ice Beam. So we swap out to a Camerupt, who we later ended up nicknaming Artorian. Artorian is able to bring the opposing Tropius down to red health, which forces Winona to swap into her Pelipper. In turn, we swap back out into Obel, who brings the bird down with a Thunderbolt. Up next is Skarmory, who is also taken out with a Thunderbolt. All that's left is the Tropius, who is healed back up to full hit points from a Hyper Potion. Obel, like an absolute champ, brings the Tropius down to red HP and paralyzes it, skipping its turn and ending the fight. A deathless Winona always feels so good. With the Bird Lady behind us, I guess we should go see what all the hubbub is at Mount Pyre. When we get there, we find that we were too late to stop Team Magma from running off with the blue orb. Team Aqua is still here though, and they're actively mugging an old couple for the red orb, but we arrived just a little too late to stop them from taking it. Maybe we shouldn't have prioritized fighting Winona over doing this. I'm sure that this won't lead to devastating, potentially region-destroying consequences, right? Anyways, the old lady gives us a Magma emblem that was left behind by a Team Magma grunt, letting us infiltrate their base under Mount Chimney. At the deepest part of their base, we find Maxie staring at the petrified form of Groudon, awakening it with the power of the blue orb. For some reason, Maxie assumed that this would give him power over Groudon, and throws a tantrum whenever Groudon flies off through the volcano to go do his own thing. In his tantrum, Maxie decides to fight us, as if that would solve his problems. So we put him back in his place without even breaking a sweat. Then he leaves to go chase after Groudon. After this, we fly on over to Slateport to find that Team Aqua is stealing a submarine. But right before they leave, Archie is so very kind and tells us exactly where their secret base is. So we head off to Lily Cove City to chase them down. We get to the end of their base, only to find an Aqua admin protecting the submerged submarine. So we fight him and win without issue, but he managed to stall us just long enough to allow Archie to escape with the sub. That's probably fine. Anyways, now that the line of Wailmer preventing us from going out to the ocean is gone, we can go fight Tate and Liza. I'm sure that ignoring Archie won't lead to devastating, potentially region-destroying consequences, right? We have more important things to worry about anyways. I made it all the way to Tate and Liza on my first run, where they completely swept my team before I could take out even a single one of their Pokemon. And I haven't made it back to them since, so I'm a little nervous for this fight. Thankfully, an hour of prep gives us a pretty good strategy. Up until now, every fight has been using a pretty similar team, with a core trio of Valari, Faranick, and Zetso. And both Slamami and Salvador the Lamre have been pretty common mainstays too. But for this fight, we have a totally different strategy. We lead with Sinvos the Dusclops and Shark the Sharpedo. First, thanks to Shark's high speed stat, we're able to taunt the opposing Xatu, preventing it from setting up a Sunny Day and wasting its entire turn. Then with Sinvos, we burn the opposing Claydol, effectively neutralizing 2 of its 3 damaging moves, thanks to Burn's additional effect of cutting attack in half. We then have to swap out of Shark, since an Earthquake from the Claydol brought it down to low HP. This is fine though, Shark has done her job. We then swap into Zarotox the Wailord. However, a combo of Psychic and Earthquake brings Sinvos dangerously close to death, forcing us to swap out, but not before bringing Xatu down to half health with a Shadow Punch. We bring out Faranick, the one returning member to this fight. Faranick's Intimidate lowers the Claydol's attack even further, making it essentially useless and ignorable for the rest of the fight. Faranick also wastes the opponent's entire turn, as they both tried to use Psychic on our weakened Sinvos, which is completely nullified by Faranick's Dark type. Zarotox then takes out the Xatu with an Ice Beam. From there, we swap out to Peter, our Cloud9 Golduck, who was our backup for removing Xatu's Sunny Day. With the Xatu gone and the Claydol being weakened to the point of uselessness, the fight is a wash. Faranick spams Bite and Peter spams Surf until we win. Everything went exactly as planned. With Tate and Liza beaten, this is officially the farthest I've ever gotten in any of my Emerald runs. Great. Now that we're about halfway into the video and the sunk cost fallacy is sunk in, I can safely shill without you leaving. The first video in the series came out over a month ago now, and that's given me plenty of time to look at the analytics for the channel. And they're pretty good. Views are booming, and the comments are flowing in. But there is one part of the analytics which is a little underwhelming. If you could help me raise that subscribed percentage up, I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to be really nice, you could leave a comment and fuel my ever-growing ego. Something along the lines of, wow, this is the greatest video I've ever seen. Or, this video literally cured my depression. Or how about, there's no content out there that even comes close to this level of brilliance. Yeah, that last one sounds good. Comment that one. Apparently, while we've been in the middle of a gym battle, Team Magma has been storming the city outside, and they're in the middle of taking over the Space Center. We rush over to try and stop them, where we find Steven. We learn that Team Magma's goal here is to steal a bunch of rocket fuel, so they can throw it all into Mount Chimney, the active volcano. They explain the reasoning behind this is literally just because they want to watch a mountain blow up. Which, fair enough, that would be pretty sick. But at the same time, what the fuck kind of plan is that? Team Magma is legitimately one of the dumbest, craziest evil teams in the entire franchise. All of their plans so far have been fucking crazy. First off, they steal a meteorite, thinking that it has some magical power to make the volcano hotter. Obviously, that doesn't fucking work. Next, they go mug some old couple for the blue orb. The blue orb. Does Groudon look fucking blue to you? Like, no shit, it didn't give you control over Groudon. If they had just taken the red orb instead, they would have released Primal Groudon. That's just a straight out blunder. And now they want to blow up a mountain because, quote, it'll be savage. That's actually the most sane thing Team Magma has done in the entire game so far. Anyway, enough ranting. We team up with Steven and finally kick some sense into Maxie, who realizes he's been forgetting to take his meds or something and leaves with his goons. As thanks for helping us, Steven gives us the Dive HM, which lets us chase after Archie and the stolen submarine. We find that he and his grunts have begun to scour Seafloor Cavern in search of Kyogre's petrified form, which we're able to locate just moments before they do. Archie tries to put up a fight against us, but he only has 3 Pokemon, so we're able to defeat him without much issue. Unfortunately, he's able to use the power of the Red Orb to wake up Kyogre, who also flies away out of the cavern, just like Groudon did. Archie, just like Maxie, is also perplexed why the wrong colored orb didn't control the legendary Pokemon that is not of that color. Though I will say, in Archie's defense, he didn't get to choose which of the 2 orbs he got. But they're still both pretty dumb. Anyways, Maxie shows up and the 3 of us leave to see that the weather is going completely buck wild and that the region will probably be destroyed if it continues. So they both run off to go try and stop the legendary Pokemon, while Steven flies down to us, asking us to go to Sootopolis with him. When we get there, we find both Kyogre and Groudon fighting in a completely lopsided match that Groudon has absolutely no chance of winning. We also find Steven, who takes us to the Cave of Origin, where we meet the champion of this game, Wallace. He tells us about the existence of Rayquaza and tells us to meet him at Skypillar. So we leave Sootopolis to its fate and run off to Skypillar, where Wallace tells us it's up to us to reach the top and send Rayquaza to stop Kyogre and Groudon from fighting. Once again, I question why it's the job of a 10-year-old to solve this problem, especially when we're with the actual champion and the strongest trainer in the entire region. Anyways, we go wake up Rayquaza and fly back to Sootopolis, where we watch Rayquaza put the others back into timeout before flying back off. With that, the plot of the game is over, leaving only the last gym badge and the Elite Four remaining. So without further delay, we go take on Juan. We lead with Valari, who's confused by Juan's lead love disc using Sweet Kiss. Luckily, we prepared for this and the Persian Berry we gave to Valari breaks her out of confusion. Valari takes out the love disc with a single Thunder Punch after. Juan swaps out to his Wish Cache, and we swap out into Salvador, who is now a Ludicolo. 2 Giga Drains from Salvador is able to take out the Wish Cache, leaving him back at full health. A 3rd Giga Drain is enough to OHKO the following Celio, leaving Juan with his Ace Kingdra on the field. We swap out into our Magneton, Abel, who is forced to take a critical hit Ice Beam. In return though, we're able to paralyze it with a Thunder Wave while it sets up a double team. Because of this, we miss our next Thunderbolt, and Abel is brought down to red HP. We decide to sack off Abel since we won't be using him in the Elite Four and get off one last Thunderbolt, bringing Kingdra down to red health before being taken out. After this, we bring out Spocky the Claydol, who self-destructs on the Kingdra. This was entirely unnecessary, but it was pretty funny in the moment, and I got a follow for it, so I would say that was worth. All Juan has left now is his Crawdon, who gets OHKO'd by a Thunder Punch from Valari, ending the fight. Now that we have the last gym badge, all that's left is Victory Road and the Elite Four. We get our team, head into the cave, and immediately run into Wally. Now, I knew that there was a fight with Wally in Victory Road, but I thought it was near the end of the cave, not right at the start. So I end up going into this fight with an unhealed, unoptimized team and a totally random lead. We end up sending out Valari against Wally's lead Altaria. Because of this, Wally gets a free turn when we swap into Zarotox the Wailord. Luckily though, he uses his turn to set up Safeguard, letting us take the bird out with an Ice Beam on the next turn. He sends out his Magneton next, and we swap into Sinvos, who eats 2 Thunderbolts before we have to swap him out after dealing negligible damage. Up next, we try Salvador, who eats a Thunderbolt but takes out the Magneton with a Surf. When Wally then sends out his Roselia, we bring out Zetsu, who easily OHKOs it with a Blaze Kick. Then out comes Wally's Ace Gardevoir, who only has Psychic type moves. So we swap into Pharaonic, who is totally immune to everything that Gardevoir can do. Gardevoir sets up a bunch of double teams and Calm Minds, but Pharaonic takes it out without issue. There is an issue after Gardevoir is defeated though. A +6 Future Sight comes out of nowhere and takes out Pharaonic in one hit. I was in total shock. Future Sight is a Psychic type move, but it can hit Dark types because the actual damaging part of the move has no type, just like Struggle. This is the first loss I've had in the series that really emotionally hurt. I've had a Mightyena on the team in every single run, and Pharaonic has been here with us since Route 101, the very first encounter of the game. With the Gardevoir gone, all Wally has left is his Delcatty, who we OHKO with a double kick from Zetsu, ending the fight. With a heavy heart, we make our way through the rest of Victory Road and start preparing for the Elite Four. After a few hours of calculations and gathering items, we have our final team. Zetsu the Blaziken, Valari the Ampharos, Ryoga the Flygon, Salvador the Ludicolo, Sinvos the Dusclops, and Kuma the Walrein. First up is Sidney, the Dark-type member of the Elite Four. We lead with Zetsu against Sidney's Mightyena. The Mightyena's Intimidate drops Zetsu's attack stat, but the white herb we gave it nullifies the stat change, letting us easily OHKO the Mightyena with a double kick. With the Mightyena gone, Zetsu proceeds to outspeed and OHKO every single member of Sidney's team, without him even getting a chance to use a single move. Talk about a chicken sweep. Up next is Phoebe, the Ghost-type member of the Elite Four. Out of all the Elite Four members, she is the only one that I wasn't able to come up with a good strategy for, so this entire fight is going to have to be played by ear. We lead with Ryoga against her Dusclops, who gets taken down to yellow hit points with a single crunch. The Dusclops then takes itself out with Curse, forcing us to swap into Kuma against her ace Dusclops. Kuma eats a few Rock Slides, but easily takes out the Dusclops with a couple of Surfs. Up next is Banette, who we predict is going to use a Thunderbolt against Kuma, so we swap out into Ryoga for free. A crunch from Ryoga brings the Banette down to red health, while we're taking down to yellow health from a Shadow Ball. While Phoebe heals back up to full, we bring it right back down with the second crunch. One last crunch finishes it off since we outspeed, and then out comes Phoebe's second Banette. We can't leave Ryoga in with such low HP, so we swap back out to Kuma, who easily eats a Shadow Ball and deals major damage with a Surf. Banette burns Kuma with a Will-O-Wisp before being taken out by his second Surf. All Phoebe has left is her Sableye. We swap out to Valari, who finishes the job with a few Thunderbolts. Phoebe was the member I was most worried about, and we beat her with no deaths. Things are looking good. Third in line is Glacia, the Ice-type member of the Elite Four. Once again, we lead with Zetsu, who OHKOs Glacia's lead Celio with a double kick. After seeing just how badly she's getting her ass beat, she swaps right into her ace Walrein. In response, we swap into Kuma, baiting the Walrein to use a Body Slam. Knowing this, we safely swap into Valari, who eats the Body Slam and the Surf that follows. And then on our turn, we're able to OHKO the Walrein with a high roll Thunderbolt. Glacia sends out the first of her 2 Glalie, and we respond by swapping into Zetsu while she sets up a Light Screen. 2 double kicks later and the Glalie is taken out, as is the Celio that follows. All Glacia has left is one last Glalie who is OHKO'd by a double kick. Lastly is Drake, the Dragon-type member of the Elite Four. We lead with Kuma against Drake's Shelgon. Kuma easily OHKOs the Shelgon with an Ice Beam, as well as the Ace Salamence that follows. Up next is Altaria, who foolishly tries to set up a Dragon Dance before being taken out from a third Ice Beam. Next is Kingdra, who is unfortunately not weak to Ice-type. However, an Ice Beam still brings it down to half health while it sets up with Dragon Dance. A Body Slam paralyzes Kuma and brings him to low HP, but he's able to finish off the Kingdra with a second Ice Beam. Drake then sends out his last Pokemon, Flygon. Kuma is too weak to stay in the fight, so we swap into Ryoga, dodging the Earthquake. 2 Dragon Claws later, and the Flygon is taken out and the Elite Four is defeated. We have a deathless Elite Four going into the champion fight. We were in this exact same position in Kanto, and we still lost 2 Pokemon. I'm trying to stay calm, but it's hard not to get cocky whenever you go into a champion fight at full strength. With that said, it's time to face Wallace. We lead with Salvador against his Wailord, and OHKO it with a critical Giga Drain before he has a chance to set up a Rain Dance. Then he sends out his Tentacruel, hoping to get a super effective poison move off. Knowing this, we swap into Valari, who is poisoned by an incoming Toxic. Valari is able to force Wallace into using one of his full restores before taking out the Tentacruel with a Thunderbolt. Up next is his Gyarados, as he hopes to get a kill with Earthquake. We swap out to Ryoga to avoid the damage. We click Fly, expecting the Gyarados to try and Hyper Beam us, but instead he gets off 2 Dragon Dances. With a +2 attack bonus, the Gyarados sees a kill with Hyper Beam, so we swap into Sinvos, who is immune to the normal type attack. From here, we get off a Will-O-Wisp and try to negate his attack buffs as he continues to buff himself with Dragon Dance. We then predict the incoming Earthquake and swap into Ryoga to dodge it. Thanks to the chip damage from Burn, Ryoga is able to eat a critical hit Surf and take out the Gyarados with a Dragon Claw. Up next is his Ace Milotic. We swap into Kuma, who eats an Ice Beam, taking a whole 5 damage. Expecting the Milotic to try and Toxic Kuma, we swap into Valari.
Toxic? Fuck. Okay. Right.
One single misplay nearly lost us Valari. We're forced to swap back into Kuma, where a war of attrition begins. Both sides are brought down to yellow health, but we're able to heal back up thanks to a Rest and Chesto Berry combo. One more Body Slam brings Milotic down to red health and paralyzes it. Expecting Wallace to use a full restore, we swap into Sinvos, hoping to get off a Burn and a Confusion. Unfortunately, we're only able to get off the Burn, as a critical Surf brings Sinvos dangerously close to death. We swap back into Kuma, where the attrition war begins once more. Both sides are brought to low health, when Wallace uses his second full restore, bringing his wall back up to perfect health. With Kuma at such low health and too slow to safely pull off another Rest, we swap out into Salvador, who eats a Surf and an Ice Beam, the 3rd critical hit from this Milotic. A Giga Drain is able to deal enough damage to even out the hit point totals. An exchange of Giga Drains and Ice Beams ensues, leaving Salvador the victor, but standing on death's doorstep. Wallace sends out his Ludicolo, his second to last Pokemon. At this point, we haven't lost a single member yet, but almost our entire team is a single move away from being knocked out. We don't have anyone who we can safely swap into here. It's time to start sacking Mons and taking risks to try to secure the victory. We swap into Sinvos, who is taken out by a Giga Drain. This lets us swap into Ryoga, who is just fast enough to get on a super effective fly, bringing the Ludicolo down below half health before being taken out by a Surf. Ryoga managed to get Ludicolo low enough that we're able to swap into Zetsu, outspeed, and take it out with a Flamethrower. All Wallace has left is his Wish Cache. We swap into Kuma, planning to sack him off for his free swap into Salvador, who would be able to OHKO with the Giga Drain. But instead of using Earthquake, the Wish Cache sets up an Amnesia, letting us restore Kuma to full health with Rest. Kuma, like the monster that he is, eats Earthquake after Earthquake and just sleeps them off every time, getting off chip damage with Body Slam in between Rests. Eventually, the Wish Cache hits Kuma with a Hyper Beam, letting us get a free swap into Zetsu on the recharge. And with one final double kick, Zetsu finishes off the Wish Cache, winning us the run. And with that, Pokemon Emerald is finally beaten. It took 6 runs over 3 months, but we finally made it. We have finished the 3rd leg of the road to Emerald Kaizo. This game was definitely the hardest by far, but Wallace didn't hold a candle to the difficulty that Lance gave us in Heart Gold. With that said, it's on to Generation 4 and Pokemon Platinum.